A mother bear, wild and desperate, stood at the front porch of a family's remote cabin. Her cubs huddled behind her, trembling. But she wasn't attacking. She wasn't growling. She was pleading, scratching softly at the wooden door, her eyes full of something no one expected to see: fear. What was she running from? And what her baby cub did next left everyone in shock. This is a true story of survival, trust, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her children. Stay with us, because this is one story you'll never forget. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. The cabin sat at the edge of Bitterroot National Forest, Montana, a place where nature was vast, wild, and untamed. It had been built decades ago by a family seeking solitude, far from the noise of the world. Inside, Jack Thornton, a retired firefighter, was reading in his armchair. His wife, Linda, was stirring a pot of stew on the stove, humming softly to herself. Their life was peaceful, predictable, until the knocking began. It was soft at first, a scratch, then a gentle thump. Not the sound of wind or falling branches. Something rhythmic. Something alive. Jack frowned. Visitors were rare this deep in the mountains, especially at night. He grabbed his flashlight and walked toward the front door. Another slow, deliberate knock. Jack hesitated, then unlocked the door and pulled it open. And there she was. A massive grizzly bear stood at the threshold, not lunging, not growling, just standing. Behind her, two cubs huddled together, their tiny bodies shaking. The mother's fur was dusted with dirt, her ribs slightly visible. But it was her eyes that stopped Jack in his tracks. She wasn't baring her teeth. She wasn't challenging him. She looked desperate. Linda gasped from behind him. Jack hesitated. For a long moment, no one moved. His fingers tightened around the doorframe. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, to not engage. But something about her posture was wrong. This wasn't a bear looking for food. This was a mother looking for help. Then, the cub closest to her, a tiny, frail little thing, collapsed onto the porch. Jack stepped forward. And the mother bear didn't stop him. The night was suddenly silent, just a man, a wild mother, and a baby clinging to life. Whatever had brought her here, it wasn't over. And Jack was about to find out why. Jack Thornton had seen wild animals his whole life. He had faced forest fires so intense that even the toughest creatures, bears, wolves, mountain lions, had fled in terror. But never, in all his years, had he seen a bear beg. Yet here she was. The mother grizzly stood just outside the porch, massive and powerful, but completely silent. Her cubs were curled up near her paws, and the smallest one, the one that had collapsed, was barely breathing. Jack took a cautious step forward, his hands slightly raised, signaling that he meant no harm. The mother didn't flinch. She didn't move at all, except for her eyes, which followed his every step with an intensity that sent chills through his spine. Linda, still inside, whispered, "Jack, don't. She's a wild animal." "I know," he murmured. But wild animals didn't knock on doors. Jack crouched beside the tiny cub. Its fur was rough, clumped with something dark and sticky. Blood? No. It didn't smell like blood. Something else. Something bitter. Jack's gut twisted. Poison. His stomach dropped. This cub had ingested something toxic. And judging by the mother's desperation, she knew it. She had brought her baby to the only thing she thought might help. A human. Jack turned his head slightly, looking up at the mother bear. Her massive chest rose and fell with slow, deep breaths. He had never felt eyes like that on him before, so full of trust and fear, all at once. He made a decision. Without thinking twice, Jack scooped the limp cub into his arms. Linda gasped. The mother bear let out a soft rumble, but she didn't move forward. She was watching. Watching. Waiting. Jack pushed the door open with his foot. Linda, we need warm towels, now. She didn't argue. Jack stepped inside with the tiny cub in his arms. It barely stirred. Its breathing was shallow, its tiny paws twitching weakly. The mother bear watched through the open door. For a moment, Jack hesitated. Was he making a mistake? But the mother had brought her baby here. She had trusted him. And Jack wasn't going to let her down. The tiny cub lay on Jack's kitchen table, barely moving. Its breaths came in short, shallow gasps. Its little paws twitched, as if its body was trying to fight, but it was too weak. Outside, the mother bear stood in the same spot, watching through the open door. She didn't growl. She didn't move. She just stared. Her massive body trembled ever so slightly, as if the weight of this moment was crushing her. Jack moved fast. He had seen animals poisoned before, raccoons, stray dogs, even birds that had gotten into the wrong things. But never a bear cub. Linda, bring me the activated charcoal, Jack said, his voice steady but urgent. His wife hesitated for only a second before running to the pantry. Jack gently pried open the cub's mouth. Its tiny tongue was dry. The bitter smell was stronger now. Acidic. Unnatural. Linda returned, holding a small black bottle. Jack, are you sure this will work? No, he admitted. But if it was poison, charcoal might absorb some of it. He mixed the fine black powder with warm water and used a small dropper to drip it into the cub's mouth. 1 drop. 2 drops. The cub barely reacted. Jack felt his stomach tighten. He couldn't let this baby die. Outside, the mother bear let out a low, mournful sound. A sound that made Linda's hands shake as she handed Jack another towel. She knows, Linda whispered. She knows he might not make it. Jack clenched his jaw. Not if I can help it. He massaged the cub's throat gently, forcing the liquid down. It was a gamble. If it was poison from berries or chemicals left by hunters, this might buy them time. If it was something worse. The cub twitched, then its tiny body jerked violently. Jack and Linda both gasped as the baby bear's legs kicked out, its little chest heaved once, twice, then it coughed. A thick, foamy liquid dribbled from its mouth. Jack wiped it away, heart pounding. The charcoal was working, but this wasn't over yet. Jack and Linda worked for nearly an hour, keeping the cub warm, checking its pulse, making sure it didn't slip away. Finally, the little bear's breathing evened out, still weak but steady. Outside, the mother bear had moved closer. She was now at the very edge of the porch, one paw resting against the wooden step. Jack slowly carried the cub toward the open door. The mother bear's eyes locked onto her baby. Jack knelt down, carefully placing the tiny creature just beyond the threshold. For a moment, no one moved. Then, the cub let out the softest, weakest whimper. And that's when it happened. The mother bear let out a sound that shattered the silence, a deep, raw, guttural cry of relief. She stepped forward, nuzzled her cub, and let out a low, rumbling sound that almost sounded like gratitude. Linda, standing behind Jack, had tears in her eyes. She understands what you did," she whispered. Jack swallowed hard. Maybe she did. Maybe this was something bigger than instinct. Maybe it was trust. But just as the mother curled her body around her cub, Jack's eyes caught something in the distance, a flash of movement. Dark figures just beyond the trees. Jack's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a mother bear with sick cubs. She was running from something. And now, whatever it was coming for them. Jack's breath hitched. The fading light of dusk played tricks on his eyes, but he knew what he saw: movement. Shapes shifting just beyond the tree line. Keeping low. Waiting. His fingers curled into fists as the mother bear nudged her cub, checking him, making sure he was still alive. She had let her guard down for just a moment. But Jack hadn't. Something was out there. He slowly stepped forward, scanning the trees. The forest should have been silent. But it wasn't. There was a presence. Something unnatural. A rustling where there shouldn't be. A snap of a branch. Deliberate. But cautious. Linda appeared at the doorway, her voice low, shaking. "Jack." He turned slightly but didn't look away from the woods. "Go inside. Lock the door." She hesitated. "What do you see?" Jack shook his head. "I don't know yet. But it's not good." The mother bear suddenly tensed, her ears pricked, her muscles coiling beneath her thick fur. She had finally sensed it too. Then, from the darkness, a voice, low. Gruff. "Human. I know you're there." Jack stiffened. His blood ran cold. From the shadows, 3 men emerged. Hunters. They weren't carrying rifles, but Jack saw the knives strapped to their sides. The way their hands lingered too close to their belts. They weren't just hikers. They weren't just passing through. And then, Jack saw something that made his stomach churn. One of them had a dart gun. Poison. That was it. That was what had nearly killed the cub. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't bad berries or chemicals in the water. It was them. Jack's body moved before his mind did, stepping slightly in front of the mother bear and her cub, instinct taking over. One of the men smirked. "Didn't think we'd find her again," he said. His voice was casual, but his eyes were sharp. The tallest one, probably their leader, tilted his head, studying Jack. "Didn't think we'd find someone helping her either." Jack's jaw tightened. He knew this type. Not just hunters. Poachers. The kind that didn't care about regulations. The kind that saw money in fur, in claws, in dead bodies. He had dealt with men like this before in his firefighting days. People who thought they could control nature. Bend it to their will. Jack's voice was low. Firm. "You need to leave." The leader chuckled. "That's funny. I was about to tell you the same thing." Jack didn't move. The mother bear let out a low, threatening growl. Her cub was still too weak to move, but her body shifted, blocking him protectively. Her massive shoulders tensed. But Jack could see the exhaustion in her stance. She had already been running from them. The second hunter, a wiry man with a scar down his jaw, took a slow step forward. "We don't need trouble. Just the bear." Jack's fists clenched. "She's got cubs." The man shrugged. "Not our problem." Jack exhaled slowly, keeping his voice calm. "She didn't attack anyone. She came here because her baby was dying. You did that." Scarjaw didn't react. The one holding the dart gun smirked. "And yet, you're the one standing between us." That smirk widened. "That means you're making this your problem, old man." Jack's mind raced. He was unarmed, outnumbered. He had no illusions about his chances in a physical fight. He could hold his own, but these men were younger, faster. But he also had something they didn't. He had her. Jack took a slow step back. "If you take another step toward me," he nodded toward the grizzly. "She won't wait for my permission." The leader hesitated. The mother bear was tense, watching the men carefully. She wasn't charging, but she was calculating. She had cubs to protect, and a wounded one at that. Jack's heart pounded. If these men were smart, they would leave. But men like them, they weren't always smart. Scarjaw looked at the leader. "We taking him or not?" The leader exhaled through his nose. He looked at Jack, then the bear, then Jack again. Then he smirked. "Not today." Jack didn't breathe until they disappeared into the woods. The mother bear let out a low rumble, not a growl, something else. Something close to relief. Jack turned to Linda, who was still standing at the door, pale-faced. "They'll be back," she whispered. Jack looked at the cub, still weak but alive, and the mother, still standing strong despite everything she had been through. He knew she was right. But now, he was in this. And he wasn't backing down. Jack barely slept that night. He sat by the window, his rifle leaned against the wall, though he hoped he wouldn't have to use it. The woods were quiet. Too quiet. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that told him something was waiting outside. The mother bear curled around her cubs, her body a massive shield of muscle and fur. The sick cub, though weak, had started to show signs of improvement. His breathing was stronger. His tiny paws twitched in his sleep, as if dreaming of a world where he wasn't fighting for his life. Jack rubbed his face, exhaustion pressing down on him. What the hell was he supposed to do now? He had spent his entire life respecting nature, understanding it, never interfering more than he had to. But this? This wasn't nature taking its course. This was men playing God. And he wouldn't let them win. Linda came downstairs, tying her robe around her. She had tried to sleep, but he knew she couldn't, not after what they had seen. Not after those men had looked at her husband like he was nothing more than an obstacle. She leaned against the table, watching Jack carefully. "You're not going to let them take her, are you?" Jack looked out the window at the mother bear. She was still awake, her eyes barely visible in the moonlight. But he knew she was watching. Waiting. Just like him. "No," Jack said. "I'm not." But he didn't know how to stop it. By sunrise, the mother bear stretched her aching limbs and nudged her cubs awake. The little one, the one who had almost died on Jack's table, stood slowly, wobbling on weak legs. But he was standing. Jack felt something tighten in his chest. He had made it. The mother bear watched him for a long time, her massive head tilting slightly. Almost like gratitude. Jack knew it sounded crazy. He had always believed animals ran on instinct alone, that they didn't feel emotions like humans did. But standing there, watching a mother who had risked everything to save her child, Jack wasn't so sure anymore. Then suddenly, she turned. She nudged the cubs toward the woods. Jack's breath caught. She was leaving. She had gotten what she needed. Her baby had survived. It was time to go. But before she disappeared into the trees, she did something that Jack would never forget. She turned back, just for a moment. And she looked at him. Not like an animal looks at a human. Not like prey looks at a predator. Like a mother looks at someone she trusts. Then she was gone. Jack exhaled slowly. He should have felt relieved. She was safe now. But deep in his gut, something told him. This wasn't over. Jack was right. It was just past midnight when the first sound came. A soft rustling. Almost gentle. Like the forest itself was holding its breath. Jack sat up instantly, his old instincts kicking in. He grabbed his rifle, barely making a sound as he moved toward the window. The darkness outside was thick, heavy. But then, a flicker of movement. A shadow between the trees. Then another. They had come back. Jack's fingers tightened around the rifle. He didn't want to kill anyone, but he also knew these men weren't here to talk. Linda appeared behind him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jack. I see them." Then, a noise Jack didn't expect. A growl. Deep. Familiar. Close. Jack's stomach flipped. He turned toward the trees. And there, standing just at the edge of the clearing. The mother bear. She wasn't gone after all. And she wasn't alone. Behind her, just barely visible in the darkness, were two more bears. Jack's pulse pounded. The mother bear wasn't running this time. She was defending. And as the poachers stepped closer, thinking they had come to finish what they started. They had no idea who was really hunting who. The night was thick with tension. Jack could feel it in his bones. The air was charged, as if the whole forest was holding its breath. The poachers had come back, just like he knew they would. But this time, they weren't the ones in control. The mother bear stood at the edge of the clearing, her massive frame blending into the shadows. But her eyes, those deep, intelligent eyes, were locked onto Jack. She wasn't here to run anymore. She was here to fight. Behind her, the two other bears moved slowly, their dark forms shifting in the night. Jack couldn't tell if they were younger males, loners, or maybe even distant family. It didn't matter. What mattered was that the poachers had walked into something they couldn't control. The leader of the group, the one who had smirked at Jack just hours earlier, stopped in his tracks. His eyes flickered toward the movement in the trees. Jack could see it now, the hesitation. This wasn't what they expected. Jack took a slow step forward, his voice low, steady, dangerous. "You should leave." The poacher scoffed, but Jack saw his fingers twitch at his belt. He was scared. The second man, the one with the scar on his jaw, let out a nervous laugh. "That thing's just an animal." Jack clenched his jaw. "So are you." And then the mother bear moved. It wasn't an attack, not yet. It was a warning. A single step forward, her muscles tensing beneath her thick fur. The ground felt smaller beneath her, as if the entire earth shifted under her power. Jack saw it instantly, the way the poachers stiffened. They weren't brave men, they were opportunists. They had come here expecting a helpless bear and an old man. What they got was something ancient, something untamed. Scarjaw reached for his dart gun. Jack didn't think, he acted. Before the man could pull the trigger, Jack fired a single shot into the ground between them. The sound exploded in the night air, cutting through the silence like a blade. The poachers froze. The mother bear didn't. She let out a low, guttural growl, the kind that rattles inside your chest. One of the younger bears behind her let out a snort, shifting its weight, ready to charge. Jack didn't have to say another word. The leader of the group, the one who had smirked at Jack just hours earlier, stopped in his tracks. His eyes flickered toward the movement in the trees. "This ain't worth it." Scarjaw didn't argue. Neither did the other one. They backed away slowly, their hands raised, their pride shattered. And as they disappeared into the night, Jack knew they wouldn't be back. Because some things are bigger than men. Some things remind us of what we should fear. And tonight, they met the wilderness in its purest form. The poachers were gone. Jack exhaled, lowering his rifle. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From something deeper. The mother bear stood still, her breathing heavy. Her cubs were safe. She had won. Jack had expected her to leave after that. He had expected her to do what animals do, disappear, return to the wild, pretend none of this had ever happened. But she didn't. She turned to him. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Jack thought back to that first night when she had knocked on his door. How she had trusted him with her baby. How she had returned, knowing this was the only place safe enough to make her stand. He should have been afraid. But he wasn't. Because he understood now, trust isn't something animals give freely. It's something earned. And Jack Thornton, an old firefighter, a man who thought he had seen everything, had just been trusted by a creature most people only feared. The mother bear huffed once, low and almost gentle. Then she turned. And this time, she left for good. Her cubs followed, disappearing into the thick shadows of the trees. Jack watched until he couldn't see them anymore. And then, for the first time in his life, he felt small. Not in a weak way. In a way that reminded him that this world, this vast, untamed world, belonged to creatures so much greater than men. The days passed. Then the weeks. The mother bear never returned. Jack knew she wouldn't. She had done what she came to do. She had fought for her cub. Fought against men who wanted to take her life. And then, when the fight was over, she had left, just as wild things are meant to. But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something inside him had changed. He had spent his whole life in the wilderness, understanding its rules, respecting its dangers. He had always seen himself as separate from it, a visitor, never truly belonging. But that night, that moment when the mother bear looked at him, when she didn't see an enemy, when she chose to trust him, it had shattered something inside him. Because for the first time, Jack realized that maybe he hadn't just been living in the wild. Maybe, all along, he had been part of it. It was mid-autumn when Jack saw it. He had been chopping wood behind the cabin when something caught his eye, a disturbance in the dirt just near the tree line. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, walked over, and froze. A single paw print. Massive. Fresh. And beside it, two smaller ones. Jack's breath hitched. He looked up toward the forest, scanning the trees, waiting for a glimpse of brown fur, of familiar amber eyes. But there was nothing. Just the whisper of wind through the leaves. He felt something tighten in his chest. Not sadness. Not fear. Something deeper. Something like gratitude. She was still out there. Alive. Thriving. And in some way, she had come back. Not to stay. Not to ask for help. Just to remind him, I remember. Jack never told anyone the full story. He and Linda agreed this wasn't something the world needed to know. Some things, some moments, belonged only to those who lived them. The poachers never returned. Maybe they learned their lesson. maybe they found easier prey elsewhere. Either way, the forest was left untouched. As the years passed, Jack kept looking for signs. He knew the mother bear wouldn't come knocking again. She had her world, and he had his. But every once in a while, on crisp autumn mornings or silent winter nights, Jack would walk out to the porch, just to listen. Just in case. And sometimes, if the wind was just right, he swore he could hear it, the distant, low rumble of a mother watching over her land. Not afraid. Not running. Just there. Just wild. And maybe, in her own way, just saying, thank you. If this story touched your heart, remember that trust and courage aren't just things we share with people, they exist in the wild, in the way we choose to live, and in the choices we make when no one is watching. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who believes in the power of nature, connection, and second chances.